We're in the botanical garden. Pet owners are most probably unaware that the gardens can be a danger trap for them. Can you explain what we're seeing here?
So we're in a garden today basically filled with plants that are known on some level to be poisonous or toxic to dogs and cats. It's important to emphasise that most of these aren't a huge threat, in that dogs and cats, like humans, tend not to eat things that taste bitter, taste unpleasant. But there's two sort of categories of risk here. There are a handful of plants in this garden that are both tempting and toxic, and we frequently see problems with in dogs and cats. And the others is just having an awareness that particularly things like young puppies will often be quite playful and exploratory and end up eating something they shouldn't eat. And if you have any doubts about your dog or your cat and a plant they may or may not have eaten, it's always better to speak to a veterinary surgeon sooner rather than later. We've got good information on which plants are and aren't problematic, and we would much rather see your dog or cat, or at least talk to you about them while the problem's fresh rather than further down the line.
Have you seen cases of pet poisoning from plants yourself?
Unfortunately, as a veterinary surgeon, I've seen several cases, as have most of my colleagues. And again, this is usually the really common ones. We see lots of problems with lily pollen in cats. We'll frequently see problems with particularly young puppies digging up things like green potatoes, which can be quite toxic and poisonous to them. So there are a handful that we know are a real problem. Christmas season rarely passes without at least one pet eating the holly and the mistletoe that's been brought into the house. So yeah, we certainly do see them.
And just how toxic is lily pollen?
Lilies is a really interesting area because we use the word lily to describe a whole variety of plants. But narrowing down into that, there are a handful of very, very problematic species in the lily family. So by no means every lily is a problem, but the pollen from some lilies can be incredibly toxic to cats. And we've even seen cases where the lilies have been taken as flowers from the house and thrown away after a couple of weeks, and the cat has then walked through the pollen dust left on the table, licked its paws and become very, very ill just from that. So you need to be very careful with species that you're putting in the house.
And what are the signs that a pet owner should look out for if they fear that their pet may have been poisoned?
The signs of poisoning and toxicity in most cases are quite similar to start with. Most of the poison and toxin, particularly in plants, will first be shown as a drooling or a salivation. They taste bitter in the mouth, same they would with you or I if we ate them. And often that'll be followed up by vomiting. Unfortunately, there is no one sign that's particularly classic, but it's a case of being vigilant. If your cat is drooling at the mouth and you've got some plants nearby that look like the cat's just had a romp in them, speak to your vet sooner.
Exactly, and if you fear that your pet has been consuming a plant,
I think if you've got any worries, speak to your vet. You don't necessarily have to go straight away, just give them a call. As a vet, I would much rather speak to you at 4 AM in the morning and an out-of-hours phone call because you've just found that the cat's eating lilies and sort the problem out then than I would see you 12 hours later in surgery when the toxins have kicked into the system and are causing problems. We live in this naive belief that every poison has an antidote, and it's simply not true. The most effective treatment for a poison is to get the poison out of the system, and if it's still in the stomach, that's very easy to do. With a little injection we can make the patient sick, solves the problem to all intents and purposes. Once those poisons are in the bloodstream and wreaking whatever havoc they do, that's when we're having to support the patient, use drugs, use fluids, hospitalisation, and trying our best to fight a proper fight then.
And it's a very expensive...
Oh, they can be, yes. This garden has been, this project has been organised by more than pet insurers, and the reason they've done this exercise is as pet insurers they have a finger on the pulse of what people are having to pay for in terms of veterinary treatments, and they've seen a rising trend in treatment for cases of toxicity and poisons and the huge bills that can come with it for the intensive care required.